in Ayurveda, there's we like to begin with an internalization. So wherever you are, just find a comfortable seat and take a moment to close your eyes and take a couple deep breaths. And just allow yourself to settle into this moment and connect to your mind and your body and your spirit. Allow the breath to anchor you into this present moment. With each breath, the air that we breathe in is nourishing. And with each exhale, our breath is cleansing. So having that intention as you breathe in, nourishing yourself, and as you exhale, cleansing and relaxing. I'm going to do a chant for you, traditional Ayurvedic chant. So just listen and keep the eyes closed and focus on the breath. Ragadi Roga Satatan Shaktan Aisheshakaya Prasrutana Sheshan Atsukyamoha Pratitan Jangana Yo Apurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So bring the hands together and rub them back and forth, creating some warmth. And when your hands are warm, bring them over the eyes. Let the warmth warm your eyes and your face, and slowly open your eyes beneath your hands. And when you're ready, letting the hands come back down. And I'll begin. So that is the first few lines of one of the ancient Ayurvedic texts written over 2,000 years ago. And it's honoring the physician who removed all of the disease, including desire and attachment, anything which shadows our life, which both of these are integral parts of living beings and are causes for anxiety, confusion, and restlessness. And this is a foundation of Ayurvedic philosophy that disease has many causes, but it is possible to overcome that disease. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little introduction about myself. So my name is Tara Ferris. I'm the owner of Ardor and Vim in Akron, Ohio, holistic health practice. I'm a Reiki 2 practitioner, a yoga teacher, and I'm currently learning craniosacral therapy, and I'll be going to massage school beginning in the fall. So digestion is the main topic of this presentation. I will be going through a summary of Ayurveda, including the principles, the elements, the doshas, and the gunas. I'll talk about the digestive system in particular, including anatomy, physiology, how our body creates the body, the tissues, and what is the governing force or the intelligence behind that called Agni. And then I have some suggestions for you of how to keep your digestion strong and how to eat in a way that is supportive to your health. So what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda is a holistic science focused on mind, body, and spirit well-being, bringing what is material and non-material of equal importance. Aru means life, and Veda is wisdom, knowledge, and science. It's a complete understanding of how we can live in harmony with our cosmic self. Dr. David Frawley and Dr. Vasant Lad are two notable Ayurvedic practitioners, doctors, and in their book written on the herbs, which is in a combined book for Western herbs and from an Ayurvedic perspective, which is pretty interesting. And they define Ayurveda as a science of living that encompasses the whole life, which relates the life to the individual to that of the universe. It is open to and includes all life and all methods that bring us into greater harmony with life. And the fundamental principles are based on nature. 3, which I think are important to mention here, are diffusion, a concentration of a substance from a movement of a substance from high concentration to low concentration to establish equilibrium. This happens when we breathe. This happens for nutrients to be absorbed into our bloodstream. This happens for our blood to be filtered. This idea of diffusion and the natural tendency for all of nature to maintain homeostasis. Another fundamental principle is similarity. Adding more of the same thing causes an increase. So if you have something cool and you add ice to it, it's going to become colder. If you have something warm and you add something boiling to it, it's going to become hotter. To restore equilibrium, going to use opposite qualities to restore the balance. So using cold to balance hot and vice versa. So these will come into play more as I go on through this presentation. But I wanted to give you an overview that these are some basic understanding of how Ayurveda works and where it lies. So the Mahabhutas are the elements: Akasha or space, Vayu or air, Tejas or fire, water, Ap, earth, Prithvi. Akasha, the elements manifest in our world. Everything in the world is made up of elements. And because we are part of nature, we are also made up of elements. And we each have a unique combination of these elements, giving us our constitution, our prakriti, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So just to get an understanding of what the elements are, Akasha, the quality is nothingness. It is the medium for other elements to manifest within. So if there's no space, there's nothing that can hold the other, can hold air, can hold fire, water, or earth. The sense associated with space is sound, and therefore the organ associated would be the ear, where we perceive sound. Vayu or air, the quality here is movement, created by subtle vibrations within the space. We have air, giving direction to process and function. The sense associated with air is touch. An example would be that even though we're not able to see the wind, we're able to feel the wind on our skin. We're able to sense and perceive that movement and vibration through our skin. The element of fire, the main quality is conversion and illumination. It's created through friction of the vibrations within the air. So as you see, the elements are building upon each other. Within the air, there's vibration. Those vibrations create friction, bringing rise to heat and light, the qualities of an expression of fire. The sense associated with this element is sight, giving us light. If we didn't have light, we wouldn't be able to see. And so our eyes become associated with fire. The earth element, or the water element, the quality here is cohesion. This is a substance's ability to change shape without losing its integrity. Nourishing and protecting are the functions of water. This sense is taste. And therefore our tongue is associated with water. Okay. The earth element, the quality is stability and is denoted by the presence of structure. Anything with structure has earth element associated with it. And the smell, our sense of smell is associated with the earth, and therefore our nose is also associated with this element. So the elements manifest within us as our sense organs, and they also have physiological functions within our body as well. Those are better understood through the doshas. which the elements combine to form these functional energies, which create and sustain all physiological functions within the world and within our body. Something that is unique to Ayurveda is being able to simultaneously hold and understand a large-scale perspective of the macrocosm while also applying the same principles on a small scale to understand the microcosm. And these fundamental concepts will help us understand ourselves, help us understand nature and how we interact with nature, and how we can bring ourselves into harmony and balance. So Vata is the energy of action, transportation, and dynamism. Dynamic energy. Its qualities are dry, rough, light, cold, mobile, and subtle. Vata is responsible for inspiration and expiration, breathing. It's responsible for our heartbeat, for our motor and sensory nerve regulation. It also regulates nourishment, our sense organs, the development of our tissues, and any urges that our body has, including sneezing, coughing, thirst, hunger, or having bowel movements, going to the bathroom, things like that. All of these functions fall under the energy of Vata. As you can see, these functions of Vata are relatively important: breathing, heartbeat, nervous system regulation. And because of this, because these functions are controlled under Vata, it's given primary influence and governs the other two, Pitta and Kapha. I'd also like to spend a little more time on Vata to understand how it moves through the body. We have an understanding in Ayurveda. There are 5 sub-doshas for each dosha. I'll just talk about the Vata sub-doshas today, including the movement that's bringing anything outside of our body inside our body. An example of this would be sensory perception. We're seeing things, we're touching things that are outside of ourselves, and that information is getting carried inside. We also have the movement of things coming up and out, including exhalation, sneezing, speech, or expression. Having something that is within us and taking that energy outside of us and sharing it. We also have the movement of taking things from the periphery and bringing them into the center. So this example of this is a separation of nutrients. So bringing, this kindles the Agni, bringing anything that's in our body into the fire, the main fire in our body for processing and digestion to either be assimilated or eliminated. From the center, the absorption of nutrients then gets sent out to the periphery for nourishment via circulation. The last movement we have is anything down and out of our body. And this Vata subdosha, called Apana Vayu, is responsible for absorption and elimination. Moving on to Pitta. This is the energy of transformation, conversion, digestion, radiance, vitality, and anger. Physiological functions under this dosha include digestion and metabolism, vision, hunger, thirst, absorption and assimilation, discrimination, intelligence, and leadership. Thinking of the qualities of fire, here we have liquid, oily, sharp, hot, light, acidic, and spreading. Moving on to kapha. This is the energy of construction, lubrication, nourishment, integrity, building, and protecting. Its qualities are heavy, cold, moist, static, sticky, soft, cloudy, smooth, and slow. Kapha is made up of earth and water elements. Pitta is made up of mostly fire with some water, and Vata is a combination of air and space. As you can see, each energy has the qualities of the elements that create it. The functions of kapha include strength and stamina, stability, growth and development, giving us the feeling of being calm and content, healing, repairing, lubrication, and memory. So with this simple explanation of the doshas, I hope that as I go through this presentation, be able to have some understanding of these principles and how Ayurveda views the world and how these are applied to each individual. So at this point, if there's any questions, oh, I have a couple more slides here. So the unit of measurement for Ayurveda is qualities, using opposites to bring balance, and being able to understand when someone's coming to me as a rogi, as a client, I'm listening for what kind of experience they're having. Are they feeling cold, heavy, and dull? Then I'm going to understand that light, sharp, and warmth will help bring them back into balance, as opposed to adding more cold things, adding heavier things, adding dry things. So using these principles of measurement to understand what's going on and how to restore balance. Smooth and rough, oily and dry, cold and hot, dull and sharp, heavy and light, dense, liquid, soft, hard, static, mobile, gross, subtle, cloudy, and clear. These are the main qualities that we look at to understand health. So what is health? In our more Western society, we view health as something separate, as this placid lake in the mountains, and in this other box, disease as a storm disrupting the placid lake. So Ayurveda views health as more central, and that any function of health is either above or below, too much or not enough, rather than being something separate. If you have a fast heartbeat, it's not that your heartbeat is wrong, but that it is simply too fast. Everybody wants to have a heartbeat. That's a natural, healthy function, but it can also be too low. So it's figuring out where's the balance and where is that balance for each individual, since we're all unique. We all have our elemental composition, making us slightly different from everyone else, mentally and physically and emotionally, that this perspective of health as it being something central and to be maintained with balance and not something separate from disease helps us have a more sustained approach to restoring health. So included in health are having the balanced doshas, vata, pitta, and kapha, having all of those functions listed like breathing, sensory regulation, having our being able to heal, digesting and metabolizing our food. Those are all falling under balanced doshas. Balanced agni is our ability, the intelligence governing our digestion physically and mentally. Balanced dhatus, which are tissues. Balanced malas, which are our products of elimination, including urine, sweat, and feces. A pleasant soul, sharp senses, and a peaceful mind. So health, being a healthy person, includes all of these things, not just having blood pressure within a normal range, or having cholesterol within a normal range, or a BMI within a normal range. Like, it includes the soul, the senses, and the mind. So it's a much more comprehensive definition of health. And if we have this, we're in harmony and able to live life fully. So that was my introduction. If there's any questions at this point, you can put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Otherwise, I'll just continue on into the topic of discussion for today, which is the digestive system. What is digestion? Digestion is a process through which our body breaks down food into molecules so that we're able to absorb the essence of that food to maintain this physical body and heal and repair our organs, maintain our heartbeat, maintain our nervous system. It is both physical and chemical. Physical digestion would include chewing, the stomach churning, where chemical digestion would be saliva, digestive juices, enzymes, things like that. We have to get food into molecules that are able to be absorbed by our body, and that is the process of digestion. The organs here in the picture include the mouth, the salivary glands, the esophagus, stomach, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and the intestines. I'll go into more detail as to how that all works. So the mouth is important for digestion because the saliva begins the process of digesting carbohydrates. The teeth provide mechanical digestion. So if we have a solid item of food and we're trying to get that down into molecules, like that takes a lot of work and a lot of energy to be able to do that. And teeth and chewing are a good start, mixing everything into more of a liquid substance so that the saliva can start that breakdown process, And also within the saliva, there's enzymes which help kill any bacteria that's in our food so that we maintain that immunity. There's antibodies in our saliva protecting us from bacteria that could be in the food that we're eating. So getting that saliva mixed in with the food through the chewing process is really important for optimal digestion and protecting ourselves from getting sick. Once the food arrives in the stomach, we're still working on the digestion. The stomach can serve as storage. We don't start absorbing anything besides water or alcohol until that food gets into the small intestine. So in the stomach, it's getting broken down into even smaller pieces, mixing with more enzymes and digestive juices from from the stomach, and creating this liquid food stuff called chyme, which then moves into the small intestine. From there, we start absorbing things. This is where bile and pancreatic juice are combined with the food that's leaving the stomach to further break down fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, and really getting down into the molecular level. So at this point, anything that we've eaten that's solid has now become so broken down that it's in molecular form and our body is able to absorb those building blocks like fats, proteins, carbohydrates, amino acids, sugars, salts, vitamins, things like that. So it goes through the small intestine, and here what's happening, we have these finger-like projections called villi within the small intestine that kind of move around in that liquid food stuff and pick up the things that it marks as nutrients. So here is that process of separating nutrients from the waste of the food. And within each one of those villi, we have blood capillary and a lacteal, which is the small version of the lymphatic system. So anything that's small enough, that gets broken down small enough to go into the bloodstream, goes into the bloodstream. Anything that gets kind of partially broken down, but maybe not all the way, it's a little bit bigger, and also fat is absorbed through the lacteals, going directly into the lymphatic system, as opposed to the bloodstream. Because it has bigger openings, pieces of food that don't get broken down entirely can sometimes get accidentally absorbed into the lymphatic system. And this is what creates an immune response when that substance or particle that hasn't been completely digested gets marked by our lymph nodes as an invader. That sets off an inflammatory reaction within our body. And this is kind of what happens when you have food intolerances, that the body isn't digesting, doesn't have the right enzymes or chemicals to get to the small enough molecular level for that substance to go into the bloodstream where it would be okay, assimilated properly, but that there's something happening in that process that's not working correctly, and so it gets absorbed into the lymphatic system where it's not supposed to be, and that incites an immune response. So once all of that happens and we get as much as we can out of our food from the small intestine, that water, our body doesn't want to lose all of that water, it wants to regain that water, so that's absorbed in the large intestine, in the colon. Here is the last chance to get any other nutrients out and serves as a storage space until we eliminate that waste product. So we've taken the apple that we've eaten and broken it down into molecules, absorbed those building blocks, and removed anything that our body deemed as not nutrients, as waste, out to our body, out of our body. That is the process of digestion. From an Ayurvedic perspective, same thing is going on. They just break it up a little bit differently. So here we have stages. According to Ayurveda, anything that is sweet, which has the elements of Prithvi and Ap, earth and water, are digested first. So if you think about it, like structure of earth and the water are what give food its substance. So if we're trying to break it down to the smallest pieces that we can, that would be equivalent to Akasha and Vayu. So we have to start from the gross level of structure and break it down into the subtle structures. So Prithvi and Ap are digested first. The sweet stage, eating carbohydrates, anything with the taste of sweet is digested first. We move into the second stage, in the small intestine, where we have the enzymes and the fire element more present. Here, I'll go back a little bit. Because of the elemental composition of this phase of digestion in stage 1, those are also associated with kapha dosha, remember? So what are the qualities of kapha? Heavy, lethargic, slow, sluggish. And how do we feel after we've just eaten a big meal? We want to sit down and relax. So that's the kapha phase of digestion. Once we get more of that fire in the second stage of the pitta dosha, then we start to lighten up a little bit. We're starting to absorb those nutrients that we've gotten from our food, and we're not feeling as heavy and sluggish anymore. Then we move into stage 3, where we're feeling even lighter, the qualities of Vata, Vayu, and Akasha, and we're feeling light and getting ready to eat again. So these are the stages of digestion from an Ayurvedic perspective, separating nutrients from the waste and moving from gross structure to subtle molecules and energy. So what's the point of digesting? What's the point of eating? It's to maintain our tissues, maintain our body. What's our body made up of? Tissues, organs, things like that. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, this is how our tissues are formed, as opposed to biology, which separates the systems like the muscular system, the nervous system, the endocrine system. Ayurveda separates the body tissues into rasa, plasma, and this is the first tissue to be formed from the nutrients that are absorbed from the food that we eat, right? Those capillaries in the small intestine pick up the nutrients, and those nutrients create rasa, which is what circulates throughout the whole body, providing the foundation for every other tissue. This takes 1 day to form. From there, it builds and becomes blood, rakta dhatu, In this process, this is another stage of transformation that needs to happen. More energy is required to form that nutrients into blood. From there, the tissues are again transformed, creating mamsa or muscle, and moving on again, meda, fat tissue, adipose, asti, bone tissue, maja, our nervous tissue, bone marrow, and shukla or artava, reproductive tissue. So this whole process takes 31 days for food that we've eaten, those raw nutrients, to get transformed and nourish every single layer of our body. Obviously, it's a continuous process and has been going on since we were created in the womb and will continue to go on until we die. So we're always at one of these phases, but if you think about it, like that's why things take time, why it takes time for us to heal. It's because we have to go through this whole 31-day process for something to become part of our whole body and eventually become part of our essence, which is the next thing I want to talk about. So once we have all of our tissues formed, we have our physical body taken care of, we have ojas. Immunity, we have our vitality, our radiance, our glow, and our aura. We have the fierceness of a lion. We have that subtle glow of energy about us. We're able to create our life and live until old age. So it is the main protective energy that we have within us, and that is the end product of our digestion, and furthermore that of our tissues that have been built from our digestive process and the food that we have eaten. From a Western understanding, the endocrine system, nervous system, skeletal system, muscular system, hematopoietic process, which is the formation of our blood cells, and digestion are all part of this concept of ojas, which is unique to Ayurveda. It is our source of strength. It is our ability to resist illness, and is dependent upon digestion and the quality of our liver functions, hormones, and enzymes. As you can see in this photo here, here we have the heart forming. We get first the rasa dhatu, plasma nourishing rakta, mamsa, meda, asti, maja, and shukla or artava, and the ojas goes back into the heart to keep the heart beating and to keep the vitality strong. So how does the nutrients get to the tissues? There are three options according to Ayurveda. This would be considered subtle digestion, and typically Ayurveda takes processes a couple of steps further than typical Western medicine to understand the process and the function underlying digestion in particular. These laws, which I've kind of already explained this first one, irrigation is the transformation of in sequence of those dhatus, eventually creating ojas. So each time it has to go under another transformation. You can't create ojas without going through the other dhatus from rasa. Moving into the next law, the milk to curd or transformation, that ojas is within rasa dhatu, but you can't get to it without more heat. For an example, ghee, which is clarified butter, is the essence of milk. So it's within milk, but you can't get to it until you've made yogurt, and then from the yogurt, you've made butter, and then the butter you've melted down again to create ghee. So this is another option of how nutrients get absorbed into the body and build the tissues. These laws are happening simultaneously. It's not one or the other, and the body can choose based on what it's needing at the time. The last one, farm and pigeon or selectivity, is that if the dhatus need something, if the tissues need something, they go and get what they need from rasa dhatu, from that nutrient liquid flowing throughout our whole body. They go and they take whatever it is that they need. So an example of that would be the blood goes and gets iron to create hemoglobin and red blood cells. Bone tissue goes and gets minerals. Fat tissue goes and gets lipids. Muscle tissue goes and gets protein. So each tissue has the intelligence to sustain itself and to get what it needs to be nourished, as long as that item is within the body. As long as we're eating a well-balanced diet, we should have all the nutrients that we need available to our tissues. If we don't have the nutrients, that's when we start to get into trouble and we have depletion and our tissues start deteriorating, not able to function properly and becoming weak. So how does that work? What is the intelligent force behind all of this process? That is another concept called Agni. It is the thermal principle within the body responsible for digestion, transformation, metabolism, discrimination, absorption, and assimilation. It is an aspect of the fire element, and it is our main source of life. If our Agni is optimal, then we're healthy. If Agni is low, then we're deteriorating, feeling weak, feeling depleted. And if we don't have Agni at all, then we're not living. So this is the force, the fire that sustains us energetically, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I liked this visual and concept of maturation. So Agni is fire element, and if you have a clay pot, it's not really useful until it's been baked and put in the kiln, hardened, and created that sturdiness from the fire. And that is what's happening in our tissues. So not only is Agni breaking down our food, but it's also breaking down the nutrients multiple times to create the tissues and giving us that stability all the way to, like, what are the last ones? Like bones are further down the line. Inside the bone, even further down the line, our nervous system, like that's our stability all the way to our immunity and our vitality. Having good acne, make sure that we're having strong immunity. Not only is acne responsible for our physical health, but also for our mental health, able to process ideas, thoughts, and perceptions. If you think about our sensory organs, right, that information is coming in, it has to be synthesized and understood, and the reaction to then come. And that transformation and digestion is happening on a mental level as well. And this is all connected. So if we're eating foods that are of qualities that are heavy and dull, we're going to have those qualities within our mind too. Eating things that are heavy and dull brings heaviness and dullness into our mind. If we're eating things that are light and airy, our mind will also be light and airy, leading more towards anxiety. That's like too much movement of the mind, whereas depression is stagnation of the mind. Does that make sense? It's the intelligence separating the nutrients from the waste. So here are some other functions. Turning food into knowledge and understanding, visual perception, maintenance of body temperature, courage, confidence, contentment, joy and laughter, fearlessness, wholeness, clarity, patience, stability, strength, and vitality. So acne is where it's at. Gotta keep the acne strong. So that kind of wraps up the digestive system, how it works, what are the main concepts from an Ayurvedic perspective and understanding, and hopefully I gave you enough background to where you could relate these new ideas, new ways of thinking into some more familiar concepts and principles like the organs and enzymes and pancreatic juice and all of that. So hope this is all making sense to you. Any questions at this point, please put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'll just keep on my little spiel here. I'm getting close to finishing. Now I'm moving into suggestions, the exciting part. So how do you know if you have good digestion? Now you know why it's so important. How do you know if you have it or not? Well, if you've digested your food well, you'll be having clear bowel movements, you'll be feeling energetic, you'll be feeling hungry, and you'll be feeling light. If you like, bowel movements are pretty important in Ayurveda because it's kind of like the end product of an assembly line. It gives you information about how the digestive system is working. So having good, clean, clear bowel movements are really important for our overall health. You should be having them every day. If you're not having a bowel movement every day, then you should work on that. If you've eaten the right quantity of food, you'll feel satisfied. You will not feel heavy, be able to breathe, talk, and walk easily, and your senses will be functioning optimally. If you have a balanced Agni, you'll have calm, quiet, loving mind, having awareness, experiencing bliss, be in good health, have longevity, and immunity. So these are the signs of being healthy, of having optimal digestion. And if there are things on here that are hitting you, resonating, that like, oh, I'm not really feeling that, then just mentally note that and be aware. So part of what I'm doing here is providing you with knowledge and information so you can make informed decisions about your health. Ashtanga Samgraha is one of the other ancient Ayurvedic texts, and this was a quote that food and the drinks that we take are helpful for satisfying the senses and bestowing long life when taken in the proper way. Our valor, our growth, our nourishment, intelligence, and health depends upon the food and the drinks that we bring into our body. This is fuel for our Agni, and this is the chief support of the body. Eating the right foods can reverse the disease process and serves as a treatment for disease. The right diet is critical to maintaining health and preventing disease. It is a foundational, fundamental aspect of being healthy. Eating right, drinking right, in the right time, in the right quantity, and having a good digestive system are the fundamentals, which is where I will be working as an Ayurvedic health counselor. This is my wheelhouse. To understand how the body is processing and assimilating things and improving that capability, removing things that are causing any imbalances, that are causing the dis-ease, the imbalance. Removing those is the first step that we take. And then the second step that we take is improving or adding more of what is supportive and what's restoring balance. So how do you have good digestion? You should incorporate all 6 tastes into your diet, including sweet, sour, salty, pungent, astringent, and bitter. Incorporating all the 6 tastes, make sure that you're getting all of the elemental composition into your body so that all of the dhatus have the availability of the nutrients that they need. Eating according to your prakriti, your constitution. Your dosha type can be either singular, vata, pitta, or kapha. It can be a dual constitution, a combination of vata and pitta, or pitta and vata, it's the same thing, or vata and kapha, kapha vata, or pitta kapha, kapha pitta. They're the same. Or you can be tridoshic. If you're tridoshic, then it's a lot harder to go out of balance. If you have one dosha, it's pretty easy to go out of balance because going back to that principle of like increases like, if you have a lot of vata and you're doing a lot of things that have vata qualities, it's going to be really easy for vata to go out of balance. So what would bring vata back into balance? The opposite qualities, which would be more of the kapha qualities of earth and water. And that is how we understand what's going on and restore balance. Next item on the list is eat freshly cooked warm food. This strengthens Agni, it's easier to digest. As I've just talked about, it's important that we get the solid food that we eat all the way down to the molecular level so that it can be absorbed. That takes a lot of energy. If we go down a notch to limiting raw food, that's like extra work for our digestive system. If it's not cooked before it goes in and it's not chewed properly and we're just eating raw, unchewed, cold food that has like not only does our stomach have to bring that food up to temperature, internal temperature, it then has to work twice as hard to break it down. So if you don't have good digestion, if you don't have strong fire, then don't eat raw food. If you have good digestion and your pitta prakriti, you can probably handle raw food okay. In moderate quantities. So it's important that our food is cooked. It does not destroy natural enzymes, vitamins, or minerals, but makes them available to our body to be absorbed. As I mentioned, anything that we eat has to be brought up to temperature to be digested and assimilated. So anything with ice, anything that's cold, also requires extra energy to be digested and can be aggravating to vata. Both raw food, cold food, and ice are vata aggravating, along with this other one here, carbonation, that quality of gas, of air, of space, can create anxiety, nervousness, dryness within our system mentally and physically. If you remember back, Vata is the main dosha, making sure Pitta and Kapha are working and moving correctly. So any Vata imbalance is going to affect all aspects of our mental and physical system. Anything that's processed here, and by processed I mean out of a package or preserved, contains chemicals that our body can't digest properly. So avoiding anything that comes out of a can or a package is a good place to start for reducing these foods that are not whole, warmly, freshly cooked. Other things to think about, including microwaves, basically take that essence of food, the prana, the life force energy out of the food. So avoiding using microwaves. I know we live in a modern world and we're all busy, and sometimes it's nice to have a microwave, but I would encourage you to think twice before you put your food in the microwave. Try and use the stove top or the oven as much as you can to preserve those nutrients in the food. The next important topic is setting a routine. Eat at the same time every day. What's the right time to eat? According to traditional Ayurveda, should be having your breakfast around 7:30. This for me, I struggle with, so I understand that routine can be challenging, but try where you can to be within a window of eating around the same time every day. If it's not 7:30, if it's 8 or 8:30 every day, then that's a really good place to start, because at least you have a rhythm and your body knows when food is coming and can prepare accordingly. So eating lunch around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and having dinner, finishing dinner around 7:30, so that you have a couple hours of digesting before you go to bed. This is what's recommended, and when I do follow this routine well, I notice a really big difference in my overall energy and my ability to feel good after eating, having those signs of good digestion. Set the mood. So eat while you're eating. Try not to eat on the go. Try not to eat watching TV or looking at the computer. Take a moment to calm your mind. Take a couple breaths before you eat. just to settle and have a moment to be with yourself and enjoy this, awesome, freshly cooked, warm food that's going to nourish your vitality. Like, that's tasty because you have all the tastes in there. It's pretty exciting. So sometimes I don't want to eat, but it is nice. Food is good. It's tasty. So enjoy the process of having your meal with gratitude. And as I was already harping on, chewing being really important. According to Ayurveda, you should chew each bite 32 times. That's one time for each tooth. Essentially, it should be, kind of liquid gooey mess before you swallow it. Maybe it's not the most palatable consistency if you're not used to chewing your food, but it does serve an important process and begins the digestion. So that's pretty simple. Even if you're not changing what you eat, you could change how you chew it, and you'd still be improving your digestion. How much to eat? Eating to about half of your capacity, adding about a quarter capacity of liquid, and leaving quarter of capacity for all of that to get mixed around. If you've ever tried to wash the inside of a water bottle and you fill it all the way up to the top with soap, but if you shake it around, like, there's no room for the water to move, so it doesn't get clean. So you have to let some of the water out and leave space so that you can shake it around and get it clean. I don't know why I thought of that example. It just popped into my head right now. So it's that idea. The sequence of eating, as I mentioned earlier, the sweet taste is digested first, begins in the mouth with the carbohydrates. So eating carbohydrates at the first part of your meal and leaving astringent, like salads, for the last part of the meal. Everything else goes in between. Incompatible food combinations is also a concept that is, I think, unique to Ayurveda. What's the deal with eating incompatible foods? They create digestion, fermentation, putrefaction, and cause gas formation within our digestive system because of the varying qualities of the combined foods. If they're incompatible, that creates confusion for our digestive system and leads to indigestion, overloading the agni and inhibiting proper enzyme function. So here's some general guidelines. Grains are good with vegetables. Grains are good with fruit. The vegetables and fruit together, not so great. So keep those separate. Dairy should also be consumed away from other foods, especially meat or fruit. Fruit on its own also doesn't combine really well with many foods, so eating that as a snack by itself, 30 to 60-minute window, before eating the rest of your meal, so that can have gone through the first phase of digestion. It requires separate enzymes. So what happens is you eat fruit, that's a certain set of enzymes that get activated based on the taste, and those are different from when you eat meat or vegetables. And if you go and eat vegetables, that's a whole separate set of enzymes that your body needs to produce, and they don't do it at the same time. So it's like you got to do one track, like eat the fruit, wait, eat your vegetables, so that your body can produce the proper enzymes and not be trying to switch back and forth. Meat should stick with one type of meat If you're eating meat, try not to combine chicken with steak, with fish, all at the same time. That creates clogging of the digestive system. Takeaways. While I have your ear, I'm going to put a little bug in it about sleeping. Sleeping is the most important thing that we do. If we don't sleep, our body is not healing or rejuvenating. We're not able to have energy. So quality sleep, and again, establishing a rhythm of sleeping and eating, even if it's not in accordance with the traditional timing listed in Ayurveda, establishing a routine and a rhythm that works for you and your body, I think will be most beneficial for your health and well-being. If you can have water to be the first thing that you put into your body in the morning and have it be warm, that would be great. Remember, we have been sleeping for 8 hours, having put nothing into our body. Agni is pretty low at that point, and putting warm water just freshens things up, gives us some hydration, and starts to stimulate the body to being awake and preparing for the day. Again, establishing a rhythm of eating, and if you have extra time, maybe do a little breathing, some meditating, settling yourself before you have your meal, or anytime throughout your day, just taking, 3 minutes or so, 3 to 5 minutes to be with yourself, say hello, check in, take some deep breaths, and bring yourself into the present moment. So those are my recommendations. This brings us to the end of my presentation. And again, thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to be here and listen to me go through this. I appreciate your presence and your support. And any questions or comments, let me know.